Thank you. Welcome to the Wednesday, February 28th, 2024 Garrison Board of Education regular business meeting. Dusty, will you call the roll, please?
Jocelyn Epizella. Here. David Gelber.
Hughes.
Jeff Harrington Wilson.
Here.
Dan Jasno.
Here.
Courtney McCarthy.
Be here in agreement.
Ken Shaw.
Here.
Sarah Thomas.
Here. All right, pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for its one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Next up, we have accept agenda changes. Come on in. Perfect. Okay. Be it resolved, do we have any recommended changes to this evening's agenda, anyone? No? Okay. You're right there, David. Be it resolved, Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby accept the agenda as presented. May I have a motion, please? You, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Nays, abstain. Great. Board President's remarks. I will be brief. Welcome back from break, everyone. So we're kicking off our 2 weeks of fun, everybody. So tomorrow night we're back here. We'll open a public meeting at 7, adjourn to executive session with district-wise to prepare for the interviews next week. Tomorrow night is 7 p.m. Dusty's for bringing snacks for us. Thank you, Dusty. Next week is 5:45 on Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday to open, and we'll start at 6. Do I have at least 4 people who can be here by 5:45? So I just need quorum to open. Perfect. Okay. And then we really start at 6. Our goal is to be done by 9 on those nights. I know it's a lot next week, so that is our plan, and then we reconvene again the following Monday.
That's it, Monday and
Thursday, or just Monday? Just the Monday. We don't need the 14th.
But we are still expecting we will get that Monday, right?
I expect we will, yes. So that's what we've got for right now. If you have any questions or anything, please let me know. We'll be back here tomorrow night anyway. So that's all I have, and I'm going to turn it over to Carl for a very exciting announcement.
Yes, so I only have one announcement this evening, but it is a major announcement. Yesterday, we were notified by New York State Education Department that Garrison has been nominated to the U.S. Department of Education to be a green ribbon school. And that is very exciting. As the board knows, we've worked a very long time to achieve this. It's years in the making. I was impressed because first I heard from Regent Francis, who's former superintendent of Putt Valley. Now she is our representative on the Board of Regents. But then I also saw comments posted by the Commissioner of Education, Betty Rosa, and very complimentary to Garrison, as well as the Chancellor of the Board of Regents, Lester Young. And they all had, you could go onto the state website, and I'll share this with the board. You could read their comments, but I was really taken back by the recognition that our school has received for what I would say is at least a 3-year effort, and it did start at the board level because this award, we can't officially call it an award at this time. Mr. Yap has reminded me. I apologize. That slipped. But we're nominated because we did really great work in 3 different areas. One is our facilities. And this work, even the previous board members and the previous facilities committee that really had a goal of creating a greener, more environmentally friendly school, getting off fossil fuel, being more efficient with our lighting system, our heating and air conditioning system. That was one pillar. The other pillar is health and wellness, and that that credit goes to many people. I would actually argue the entire faculty contributes. Our mental health professor, Mr. Diego, is sitting here. Our school nurse, Mr. Beckley, who teaches a health course, and then the third major pillar is environmental education. And 3 years ago, we brought on something pretty innovative. We brought on a new position, and Miss Rachel Arbor stepped in as our environmental education teacher. And she has integrated that successfully at every grade level, pre-K through 8, and in every subject area. Teachers have embraced it. There's been a real collaboration. Every summer, she has enhanced and revised the curriculum, and it is in a place now where we've received this impressive recognition as a Green Ribbon school. So I complimented the staff earlier today. Now the board is aware of this, and the next step, by the way, is on Earth Day, April 22nd, the U.S. Department of Education will announce who will be honored in Washington, D.C. So Garrison is nominated. We are keeping our fingers crossed, and that will be very exciting for the district. So we held up, related to this, we have a lovely winter and newsletter, and we did hold it up because we expected this news. So Dusty has already been running the printing presses, and tomorrow they will be folded, and by early next week, all of our community will learn about the award, as well as many other exciting things happening in Garrison. Thank you.
Have any questions from Carl?
No, but thanks for taking the time, you and your staff, put the application together, because I know it was like several hundred pages of work.
Well, and Jocelyn, I'm sorry because I mentioned Mrs. Arbor in her teaching. But Mr. Yap is the person who probably, I want to say maybe a couple of hundred hours. Everything that we've done had to be summarized and documented and submitted for review. And there's a lot of back and forth. And James has been working on it for about a year, in addition to providing support and leadership for all the different areas. So James, thank you, and I apologize for not mentioning that earlier.
No, you've mentioned it before. Don't want to.
I hope, I know Courtney and I, we saw the news release, talked briefly about this yesterday. I hope we can find a wonderful way to celebrate with our whole community. Perhaps after the official Earth Day nomination. Share your great idea. It's a really nice idea.
Sure, it's totally not my idea. It was ripping off of Haldane last year when they got the Blue Ribbon Award. They did a huge spread with all of the kids with blue and white cupcakes. And so Sarah and I were talking over the, and Sarah's idea was they had combined it perhaps with the climate summit, is to have all the kids involved, but maybe we could do like green cupcakes and a giant G for Garrison, for green, something like that. But
Exactly. Very exciting. All right, here we go. All right, next up, we move on to board communications and presentations, beginning with the budget presentation. This has been with finance. I don't know if I want to speak to it all before we introduce Rohan as our finance committee chair. I think on the spot
I was prepared.
Okay.
I just wanted to, obviously, this is always one of the bigger issues that the board deals with year after year. I think we've had some good news and some challenging things that have come along in the last few months as we put this together. But I think overall, it's a pretty strong year for us, and we've come into some good fortune in some different areas, different expenses and costs, and feeling very positive about it. But I won't steal the show. I'll let Joe go ahead and give the presentation. But again, as always, I'll say this afterwards too. Thanks to Joe and Carl for all the work they put this together.
Thanks.
As we've done in past years, I will open up with just some details about the process itself and our academic programs, and then I'll turn it over to Joe Jemick for the financials. A lot of this may look familiar for those who were following last year, but our finance committee did have very similar budget objectives. We did have a goal to stay within the allowable tax levy, and the budget you will see accomplishes that. Transparency is just always a goal. And as we've done in previous years, we'll have our formal meetings here with the Board of Education, and of course they're televised. We also have a Saturday meeting, and the dates are at the end. We'll review those dates for community members to come in and have more dialogue. Not everyone is comfortable being on camera or in a formal setting, so we do welcome people on a Saturday, and we will be here as long as people would like to discuss budget. Also, this budget has lines that are very realistic. There always has to be some level of contingency. For example, high school tuition students, there are a few extra placements in case a family moves in with high school age students, but there are not 10 or 12 because that would be unrealistic. We just haven't seen that past trends. So there's some contingency, but it's realistic is the way I would describe it. And last, it supports our district's goals. We worked very hard about 3 years ago to establish a strategic plan. Last month we learned about our ELA performance being in the top 3% of New York, and that was a major focus of the strategic plan, and every budget has been aligned. And also this wonderful news we hear about, green ribbon schools, that also emerged from a strategic planning process and follow-up budgets that supported all those goals in the strategic plan. This you've seen many times, so I will just quickly move past it. But again, this is our strategic plan, the outline of it, vision of a graduate, and then the strategies that we use to get to our goals. Now, this slide shows you a bit more detail about some new things and some continuing things that the budget will support. The first is, you may have heard if you're following education news, that the governor has announced a Science of Reading initiative across all of New York State. And Garrison, fortunately, is ahead of the curve. And I think our student performance demonstrates that. Nevertheless, we anticipate having to do some professional development, potentially enhance and look at, I think it's an opportunity to look at our curriculum alignment, pre-K through 8. And that will cost some money, so we've added some extra money in the budget to support that work. Field trips. This was introduced a couple of years back, but it was a challenging budget. But it is a real burden for our staff it's enough to plan a field trip as a teacher, but when you have to then collect money and sit with our treasurer and go through that and go back and forth, it's just an added burden to our faculty and also to families. And we thought, establishing, I think it's a modest field trip budget, which can allow every grade level at least 1 or 2 field trips per year that are aligned with their curriculum. We will not need to, if it's supported, we don't need to ask families for money or the foundation. And the teachers can schedule these trips like at the onset of the school year. They don't have to wait, and it'll be much more efficient. Also, school artwork installation projects. So this came up, the admin team, the faculty, even our DEI committee has talked about the school is actually beautiful with all the renovations we did, but some of the walls are kind of bare. One example is, right above the board. And we thought about, how art really can enhance the environment for students, for staff, and visitors. So we have a modest budget that we're proposing. And I would recommend that a committee be established and think about, the best way to start, having art installed within the Garrison school to beautify, enhance the environment. The school sign, if anyone has taken a close look out front, I think the next windstorm may wipe out our sign, which is, pretty old and about on its last leg, really. Also, if we are fortunate enough to be a great school, it may be a nice idea to have that added to a new school sign. The roof replacement and floor refinishing in the gym, I'm going to let Joe give you a little more detail because he handles facilities, but basically the roof is at end of life. It was, I think roughly 22 or 23 years old, Joe, if I'm correct, and the floor has not been done in quite some time. So we found a way in this budget to be able to finance those two projects. Gymnasium sound system, through the capital project, we do have a very good PA system that was installed. However, since the early stages of the project, our performing arts department has grown. We have a theater program, we have a chorus program, a thriving band program, and we do need some enhancements to have our community, our parents, fully enjoy the wonderful music that our students are creating and making. So we are proposing a sound upgrade. These are all continuing. I won't spend much time here, but the environmental ed program is certainly supported by the budget. All the special area classes, basically at the middle school level, art, debate, STEAM, information, literacy, theater, band, chorus, and our student e-music. Our students have some choice there, and that is very appropriate for the middle school age level. We also will continue band and chorus in grades 3 and 5. I think, you know, that the quality that you see at the middle school level really starts in the earlier grades. SEL, the programs that we're using, you know, need to continue. This is key, and that is in the budget. And our DEI work. We also think a lot of our success in the area of literacy is because we've been looking at everything we do through a DEI lens, through the, you know, the culturally responsive framework that New York State provides. Moving on to enrollment. Our numbers are pretty stable. So you see, for example, this year, I show you on the left, actual enrollment right now as we speak, and what we're projecting is on the right-hand side. So right now, I think we have about 14 pre-K registered, but we do believe that will go up maybe to 16 or 17. We can go as high as 18. We have, I believe, 21 kindergarten students registered. We're more accurate than previous years because, again, we have a pre-K program. So we do know the majority of our students in this age range. And our main office has done a lot of outreach to local pre-Ks. And we think that number of 22 is fairly accurate. It may go up 1 or 2, and we're keeping a close eye on it. And registration is open at the end of March, so we'll keep you posted. First grade at 17, second grade here. 41 in 2 sections. That's the only grade level in 2 sections. Moving on, the first class, that is our special education class. We have 4 students in it right now. It's a new program. It's a partnership with Haldane and Garrison, and it is going exceptionally well. Mrs. Mig actually earlier today was working on a brochure to send out to districts in the area. We do have some available seating, so we would welcome some tuition students from other districts, and that will be going out within a week. But moving on to 3rd grade, we have 19, 1 section. 4th grade, 25, a little on the larger side, but 1 section. We think that's manageable. And in 5th grade, I believe it's 18. And middle school, 19 grade 6, 18 grade 7, and 25 in grade 8. At the bottom, I just show total sections year over year remain the same. This is important to keep in mind. Total high school enrollment numbers continue to go up. I believe we have approximately 14 12th graders that we anticipate will graduate. But we're following that up with about 24 8th graders moving into grade 9. We have 21 here in Garrison, but there are also 3 in an independent school that actually be returned to our public school system. The next year, you see it dips a little bit, and it'll slowly start to taper off in years beyond 26, but it is something where we're reaching a peak, and we could go as high as 100, and of course, you know, there's costs involved with that. This just shows overall staffing levels. We're staying flat. year over year in every category, faculty, teaching assistant, aide, administration, clerical, facilities. Basically, it's the same. Now, for the expenses, I will turn it over to Mr. Jimmick.
Okay, so some of the things that we have to do next year that affect the budget are the facilities related items. And the big one is the first item, which is the gym roof. The gym roof is original to the construction of the addition, and it does have active leaks associated with it, need to be replaced. So that is going to be included in the budget as a transfer to capital. And then the gym floor, if you've been in the gym recently, you can see there's a number of places where the existing floor finish is delaminating and it needs to be redone. And this is what the cost of having that done is. Essentially, there are contractors that do this. That's their main job that they do, and that's what the price is for that. HVAC, as the project is finishing, we're actually we're closed out on 3 out of the 4 prime contracts for the construction project that just finished. But we will soon be closing out the HVAC contract as well. These equipment will need to be maintained, and we are putting a estimate in there for a maintenance contract for that equipment. The HVAC system does require a lot of electricity, and so we have a increase in there for electricity for next year. And then, as Carl mentioned, we do have a new sound system, but it is primarily a PA system, and it doesn't have a lot of inputs for doing the plays and the music production. So there's a placeholder for a upgrade for that. So high school tuition, just by the enrollment, that's the increase that we estimate, 150,000. Transportation contract, we have been informed that our existing contractor is not able to continue based upon a annual renewal, but we're going to have to bid that. So we have an estimate in there for that. And the field trip, to have a nominal budget of 25,000, cover all the field trips for the school. Arts and education, increases and enhancements there, and professional development for English instruction. We believe that we will need some outside assistance, and that's the estimates that we have for that. The annual climate summit is going to be included in the budget, as well as a piece of equipment called the biodigester, which is it's kind of like composting, but it is more hands-off as far as reduction of food waste. So essentially, any waste food, so it doesn't go in a landfill, gets digested in this unit, and the effluent is basically water. A new school sign, artwork project, and modified sports uniforms. So a lot of these items are things that you're not going to purchase on a year-to-year basis. So it's good that some of the additions are one time or not very frequent. So transportation, we have additional expense for what we're estimating the contract to be, as well as to cover additional sports requirements and other after-school transportation for the high schools. So inflation, we have inflation that's above what the tax capital was, increased the budget. On the revenue side, you've probably heard this a lot in the news. There is a proposal from the governor to reduce foundation aid and basically follow the foundation aid formula. And what that means is that eliminates what has been called a hold harmless increase in state aid. So what hold harmless means is each year, each school would get a certain percentage increase in state aid, even if the formula didn't say that they should get some, just so that there was an increase in revenue. And that Garrison falls into that category because it is a high wealth, low need district and doesn't, by the formula, doesn't get or shouldn't get a lot of foundation aid. So for decades, the school has gotten hold harmless increases. The governor's proposal would eliminate those hold harmless increases and make everyone at the formula. What that does is that would reduce the amount of foundation aid we would get from one year to the next by 234,000. And it is the highest amount in the region, and that's just because of Garrison's tax base and low need. Now, do we think that this is going to happen as far as being included in the final budget? I would bet, based on the number of districts that it affects statewide, it's 40% or more. That's not likely to happen, but this is something that we'll have to wait to hear back. So we're going to plan to not have it and build our budget based on that. So this is just an update of the information that we've shared before. That the median taxpayer in those 5 counties that are listed, 5 counties that are listed there, pay typically 2 times as much per dollar of property value than Garrison does. There's 88 school districts that have jurisdiction in one of those 5 counties. And Garrison is ranked 87th out of 88 for its tax rate, the lowest, save just Mechanico. All right. So we have been lobbying our representatives. We have talked to Garrison and Dana Levenberg about these issues and how this hold harmless and thing really is not something that is sustainable for anyone. And we have requested grants and aid from our Assemblywoman and our Senator. Okay, so one of the things we have, and you'll see when we get into the tail end of the presentation, we talk about the propositions that are part of the budget, is we are asking for permission to have multi-year contracts. We're going to be asking for this on a continual basis as the contract terms get close to expiring. Then we want to renew these contracts because they allow us to have a predictable and stable growth as far as the tuition that we pay for high school students. So we have a 5-year contract with Putnam Valley that expires in June 2028. We have a tentative agreement with Highland Falls and Haldane to extend the contracts through June 2029. However, Haldane's contract is different than the other 2, where they basically have a distinction or a clause of the contract that every year for the subsequent 7th grade class, they want to renegotiate what the base tuition rate would be. And for each year that this has happened, they've gone back and made it to be the same as the other schools, but we have to renegotiate it each time. So if we were able to, we would like them to have the same contract terms as the other two. That's what we do ask them for. If they're all approved that way, the future increases will mirror the tax cap formula, so that the tuition rate will increase at 2% or the rate of inflation, whichever is less, because that's the formula at which we live by. So if we can have our tuition mirror that, that's good and predictable for us. All right, so one of the things that we have is the tax cap. There's a formula associated with it. You can, we'll show it briefly here. You can also look at the New York State Comptroller's website or SED to see some more information about it if you want to. But it is based upon the prior year's tax levy, the tax rate based growth factor, which is something that we get from New York State real property that basically says that the value of the properties in the school district changed by X percentage. And then the allowable levy growth factor, which in this case is 2% of the rate of inflation, whichever is less. And then if there's any exclusions for increases to retirement system contributions, for the capital levy, or court orders and judgments. All right, so we have the allowable growth factor for next year. You can see based upon the time frame, the actual inflation was 4.3%, but we're only allowed the 2%. We don't have any exclusions for retirement contributions. There is a exclusion for the capital tax levy, and the main component of the increase between the 2023 to 2024 is the transfer to capital for the gym roof project. So there was a $45,000 transfer to capital for the water heaters in the current year, and then next year is a $250,000 transfer to capital for the roof. And this is just the formula. So that really there's only a couple of pieces. So you have the growth factor, the capital tax component are really the only pieces that move for us. We don't have any pilots that we know of. If there is a pilot that's to be formed by the Putnam County IDA, they have to inform us if that's going to happen. But we haven't heard that any of those. So this is the formula. So there was a 0.8% growth in the base, and then you have the prior year's levy and the prior year's capital component. Put the growth factor on, and then you put the new capital component on, and you get a maximum allowable levy of $11,196,981, which is a $475,000 increase for 4.4%. Is Garrison seeking an override? No. 4.4% is allowed. Tax increase of that amount requires a simple majority vote. This is a revenue budget for the current year and for next year. You can see there that the items there in green are the items that come from the state aid output reports. So the amount in green, in the green box above, the total of those originally from the budget was $947,870,000, and what we actually got after we submitted our aid request was $1,050,000. And the difference in that is primarily the amount of BOCES aid. So as you buy more services, then you get additional BOCES aid, and usually that's it lags showing up in the aid output reports, and that's why there's actually an increase above what was estimated with last year's budget. But still, that represents the governor's proposal represents a $115,000 reduction from year to year. And so basically, the foundation aid decrease of $234,000 is offset by the increases in other aid categories that we get. So specifically OCC. So we don't think necessarily that it's going to end up that way. That's the number for foundation aid. However, it is likely that we won't know that until after the board has to adopt the budget for next year to put it out in time, because it's likely if they are drawing it, if the governor is drawing a line in the sand with the legislature about this item, that it could go past their April 1st deadline. So we are not planning on using any reserves to support next year's budget, only undesignated fund balance. And if the year that we're in continues to occur on its trajectory that it's on at now, the Finance Committee may recommend reallocating some additional amounts of the undesignated fund balance to replenish some of the reserves. Because if you remember, in a couple of years past, we have had to use the retirement reserve and some other reserves to support the budget. And we are planning to do that this year. And if the year does finish the way we may expect, we may be able to put some money into the existing reserves before year end. So if we take a look at this chart here, I think the biggest item to point out there is, if you remember, if you were here for the audit report review, the big item there is in 22-23, so the year we just finished, the change in general fund balance. So we had a number of things that went our way last year that were not known when we developed the budget for 22-23, and we had a number of things that were basically a surprise. We did get FEMA aid came in. It's a project that we've been working on for 2+ years, and it came in right in June of last year, right before the end of the year. We had grants for mental health that offset a lot of the costs for our counseling staff last year. That was not anticipated. We got grants and aid from New York State. So there was a number of items that went our way, and we had some students that were planned for special education placements that either moved out of the district or changed their placements. So there's a number of items that broke our way in 22-23, which allows us to not have to use any kind of reserves to support the next year's budget. So this is just a proposed budget in summary. We have some increases you can see in the main increases that you see in general support are the new HVAC contract. You have more electric, and you have the refinishing of the gym floors, the new sign out front. So these things that add to the total, those are things that really drive that particular number up. And in instruction, it's primarily the tuition is a big part. And you have the art installation is in there, the biodigester, the professional development for English, the sound system upgrades, all that stuff is rolled into that number. And in transportation, you have additional after-school transportation, as well as a estimated contract settlement. And in terms of employee benefits, that we basically, with a particular combination of staffing that we have, the enrollment in the health plan is less than in prior years, so that helps us. And then you see interfund transfers. You see it going from $55,000 to $260,000. So that's $250 for the roof of the gym and $10,000 transfer to special aid. So why are we doing the gym roof as a transfer to capital? Okay, so it allows us to fix the roof without having to borrow money to do it. And I went out and looked at the recent settlements for bonds in the current time frame with credit ratings that are similar to Garrison. Garrison is a A+ rating as indicated by S&P a couple of years ago. And if you put us in that kind of time frame or that kind of risk profile, that is currently issuing bonds at around 4%. And a bond at 4%, if you financed it over the life of what the value of the asset would be, which improvements to schools are usually 15-year assets, that amounts to a actual interest cost of about 10% of whatever the project is. That's what it, when you do all the math and you use a four percentage point basis amount and you finance it through over the 15 years, you're going to end up paying about 10% for financing. So this allows us to do projects that we need in order to keep the school safe and maintained over the upcoming years, because it is going to be a time in the near future where any debt is going to be falling off, because we just did issue some debt for the project just finishing, and there's still a number of items that need to be done around the school. And the facilities committee will prioritize those items, but the gym roof is one that is actively a problem for us and needs to be replaced. This is just one of the things that you have to do as a part of developing your budget is break it into 3 components: administrative, program, and capital. Capital is the facilities and plant. Administration is administration of the district as well as the school building, and then the program is everything else. So it's 9.9 million of program, and 1.7 of capital, and 1.6 of administration. So we do have unknowns. Will we get additional aid? Will additional foundation aid come in? We may, and we may also get additional special aid from our Senate and our Assembly. We do account for special education out of district placements, and we do account for private schools and special education. If you have private schools that are within the transportation distance, that's less than 15 miles for a private school, you have to. So those are some of the things that are unknown. Those submissions are due April 1st if you have a transportation request for private school. So the district would allocate $857,000 of the undesignated fund balance in order to stay within the cap. If the budget is defeated, the board can hold a revote for the budget in June, or they could do the same one or a revised one, or the board could adopt a contingent budget without going back to the voters. Contingent budget would have the tax cap would be the same year. Last year's levy would be the same amount. We increased the budget gap by 475,000, and we need that cuts in order to balance the budget. And we would look at staffing, because that's really the so then we have the budget is the first proposition. So 13,324,000. be appropriated and to levy the tax for that. And then these are the terms of instruction contracts. The first one is for Haldane, and shall the district have a, contract for up to 5 years, with Haldane, for the purpose of educating the high school students, and that we would provide the transportation for those students. If it's defeated, we won't be able to extend the contract through June of 2029. And as we have said before, if Haldane doesn't have a tuition rate that is comparable to the others, that may not allow us to send the next class. So that's an important thing that we're trying to get an agreement on. And then we have a similar terms of instruction contract with Island Falls. We don't anticipate any issues with that contract as far as them renewing it. There's some of the dates to come up. So March 13th, we're going to have a second budget presentation, and then we'll have a community forum on Saturday, March 16th. And that's really an opportunity where it's less formal. It's not an official board meeting. So we're allowed to take and respond to questions and have a dialogue about the budget. And it has been, in past years, it has been well attended. And, you know, we encourage people, if they have questions about the budget, that's definitely the one to show up to. Because once the budget is adopted, and you know we have a budget hearing, the hearing is really just to make a last presentation, but there's nothing can be changed at that time. But until the budget is adopted, obviously things can be adjusted, changed, or there could be influence. But if you are interested in talking with us about the budget, that would be the day. Make sure you attend on Saturday, the 16th. And then we have the last presentation is Wednesday, April 10th. And that is when we plan to have recommendation for the board to adopt the budget. April 22nd, if there are members of the public that wish to run for the school board, their candidate petitions are due back to the clerk by 5 p.m. And then the district clerk can begin getting the absentee ballot applications and early voter applications. And voter registration currently is May 6th and 7th, between 9 and 3. If you're not registered through the county or through the district, you can register first. So May 8th is the hearing. May 13th is a newsletter that's of a similar format to what this community newsletter is going to go out. There's going to be a budget newsletter that has all the information on it, just like we did last year. And on May 14th, the clerk has to get all the absentee ballots back in. And May 21st is the vote. Yeah. I think that's it. Other questions?
Questions?
One question. Sorry.
Yep, okay.
So going way back to the enrollment figures, there's one class that has 25 kids in it. And you mentioned, I think that's unusual. Most of them 67. I'm just curious to know how you determine the number that's acceptable and what isn't. In other words, if it was 26 or 27, was it too many? Or is it fourth grade? Fourth grade. So how do you make that determination? What's okay?
David, some districts have policy on enrollment numbers. Other districts have contractual, enrollment numbers in the teacher's contracts. You can't go above a certain number. We don't have either one of them, so it really it's the district's discretion. So 25, in my judgment, at the intermediate middle school grade levels is very consistent with many other high-performing districts. At the early grade levels, that's probably considered a bit high. So if you're talking about kindergarten, first grade, maybe even second, it is, and the research will support that it is advantageous to have a lower class size, but 25 in grade 4, in my judgment, is appropriate. We also consider things like we have very strong veteran, faculty. Other considerations are we have an inclusion model. So if students do need support, academic support, at every grade level, we have the ability to provide a special education teacher who actually pushes into English and math and even other subjects if needed. So at times, maybe 2 to 3 periods a day, there could potentially be 2 teachers with 25 students. So all those things are considered. Again, the district could establish a policy, the board could if they wish to. But at this point, the way Garrison has been operating is internal discussions and then recommendations to the board finance committee and then the entire board.
Just to follow up on that, the kindergarten, I know you've been touched for all of this budget with the students, there's all of these ideas that we can talk about. But is there a point at which you would split kindergarten? Then would that enrollment change?
Yeah, the kindergarten one is a bit of a concern. I think earlier today, main office confirmed 21 registered. In past years, a lot of we had people register like well into the summer. Again, because we have pre-K and it's very popular, and we think most of our students are in the current pre-K. We feel like we have a good handle on this, but there's potentially 2 more students, which brings us to 23 in kindergarten. And, that I think is manageable. You do have a veteran, an excellent kindergarten teacher. We have an oversized room. So even if space is a consideration, certainly it's actually the largest of the elementary classrooms. But I think if it starts going beyond 23, we may come back to the board and recommend, and again, this is the first presentation, 5-6 weeks down the road, if that number continues to increase, we may come back and recommend a split. And we do believe it could potentially be worked out with existing staff by rearranging some schedules. But we would prefer to keep it in one section with Mr. King.
Okay, other questions for Carl and Joe on budget?
Yeah, just a couple questions / comments. So the 4.4% number is a relatively generous increase within the sort of the tax cap formula. Where does that sort of fall relative to past years where we haven't gone for an override? Is it within the higher end? Is it how where does it fall within that range?
So it's at the higher end. It's probably about a percentage point above where it had been in the past. But in order to do, we anticipate that we are going to have capital needs for the foreseeable future for a number of items. So if you established a capital appropriation at this kind of threshold, so if you do a similar size project next year, there's no percentage change increase. So really the main part of the difference is going from a $45,000 transfer to capital to a $250,000. But there are a number of projects for roof and for the outside, the pavement, the facade of the old original building. as you look at the building and you look at the enhanced facilities report, there's a number of items that are in the near term that we need to do. If we are able to maintain capital work each year at this kind of level, I think it's a sustainable thing.
So just on four things. So if you said the main increase is from going from 45,000 to capital, transfer to capital to 245 and then 250, and if we don't have a similar transfer next year, how does that? So say we transfer another 250 to capital for next year.
Then you wouldn't see an increase because that would flat.
Yeah. So we would still be able to increase at the whatever the formula caps.
Yeah. So this is the capital work is considered an exclusion. So the exclusion includes your debt service components and less any aid. Garrison gets very little building aid, 10%, which is the lowest you can get. So the district has to finance the stuff anyway. If you can finance it without borrowing for it, you're saving that finance charge. And based upon the current rates now, if you issued a bond today, it's around 4%. That's what a municipal bond with a rating that we have with a 15-year term, that's what you're going to get. And when you do the math on that, you add 10% to the cost. So it just makes sense if we're able, if this is something the public is willing to support, we're able to do it, we should, because I believe that year after year, we need to invest in the building, because it did go a very long time without investing significantly in the building. And it's gotten some of the things to a point where they are beyond their life.
And so by transferring the money to capital, not only are we making that investment, but it also gives us some additional room in the tax, in the formula that allows us to get a higher tax rate without going for an over.
Well, it basically doesn't affect anything else in the budget. So, you could make it 900,000 if you wanted, but, you would still have to get that passed by the public. I think if this may be a doable number that when you get all the rest of everyone's results, it might be on the high side, but I don't think it's going to be the highest anywhere close to the highest. And I think it is an investment that is needed in order to ensure that we can maintain things, because we do things on a planned basis. They're typically cheaper than they are on an emergency basis. We are patching the gym roof up the best that we can with what we can do, but there's only so far you can go with that.
Joe, if I could add, and the board, I think is aware of this, but related to this conversation is we recently received an official notification from Dana Levenberg's office that for this particular project, we would receive $125,000. It's a CREST grant. Once the project is completed, the district would be reimbursed. So although state aid is only 10%, this would be 50%. So I think what we need to do, the board is aware, but I think we have an audience also for an audience that has joined us. I think our next presentation, we should add a slide that shows, because I think it's more reason to support something like this, knowing that the district will receive $125,000 back, which can be reinvested into future projects. And as Joe said, there is a long list of facilities projects, and I think if you could, every year chip away at them, I think that's a smart strategy.
I just wanted to speak briefly to some of the lobbying efforts. With the reduction in the hold harmless, a lot of districts are, reaching out to their representatives, senators. We've talked to seniors in our district about how we'd like to plan long term. And one of the things that has been coming up on those calls repeatedly is that, foundation aid was fully funded just last year. And then the very next year, the formula changes and it's no longer fully funded at the level. So that type of unpredictability, basically, from the state makes it very difficult for districts to plan if we're gonna be expecting wild swings like that. You know, I do think once we see the full, from what I'm hearing, once we see the full budget from the state, that money will be back in there. It's hitting a lot of districts really hard. We happen to be in a place where we can sustain it due to the high amount of undesignated fund balance we're currently carrying. If you remember audit, we're at about 14%. We should be at 4%. So we're in a good place with it. But that's just sort of something I wanted to add in there. Because I know long-term concern is the concern of the community. And then also I had a question on the propositions. One of the things that we've been doing in recent years, as you see with the high school contracts, is really trying to help us plan long-term and make sure we have contracts. We're going out to bid for transportation. One of the issues we have with transportation is that the contract is year to year. And while we have an escalator into it, they can just say, no, thank you. Is there a possibility that we can put a proposition on to do a 5-year contract should the public wish to allow us to enter or win the bid? Do we have any idea on the legal legality of that yet, or?
Yes, we
Yeah.
can. Yeah, we can do up to 5 years. The only last remaining question that we had was whether or not we can do it without a contractor's name in it, and we're just making sure we verify that answer. Because we would need, we have to bid this out. There is time that you're gonna need to have it out for people to review, out for people to ask questions of the district, and then for them to respond and submit a bid. Based upon where we are, and it's not out yet, you know, I don't know that we would have a name in time to be able to include it on the ballot. That's my main concern. Other than that, we're able to say for transportation and not mention the name, we would put it on.
That would help us.
Yeah.
In terms of what stability is.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments? Concerns with the 4.4 number at this point?
There's
Yeah.
one more question about the undesignated fund balance. So my understanding is we ended last fiscal year at the 14% or so.
With like 1.4 million basically.
Right. And so the state guideline is 4%. And so in the budget, you know, we talked about, there's a little bit of, qualification about, you know, assuming this year continues as projected, we will transfer to reserves. I'm just curious how, so throughout the course of this fiscal year, we're drawing down on that 14% undesignated fund reserve balance. And then at the end of the fiscal year, will we, so I guess how does that process work in terms of when do we make a decision about transferring some of those funds into reserves? And is that part of next year's budget, or does it happen at the end of this fiscal year?
It's going to happen during this fiscal year that we're in. The 14% was net after we already put the money towards the current year's budget. So you designate some amount of the undesignated fund balance for next year's budget. So when that was done and everything else was done, there was still 14% that was not needed. And of the amount that was designated for this current year, we do know of some additional break-ins with special education and some other things where we aren't going to need as much of that reserve that we had planned for the current year either. So there are some things that improved in that regard. So so we're confident that we're not going to need all the reserves designated for this year. That's why we're confident that that the amount of the undesignated fund balance is free and clear. And if we want to get under the 4% number for next year, we most likely will have money to be able to put in our reserves and get to the 4%.
So perhaps we've done that at the end of June. So right when they start to reconcile, so our year end is fiscal year end is June 30th. So right before we wrap up the year and audit.
And then we're still in the process of deciding how much we would put in specific reserve accounts and.
Yes.
Which
Yeah,
reserve accounts I would guess. But that would happen probably end of this fiscal year.
I think it's like the last June meeting, last time we were able to do it.
Yes.
And obviously, it's in our best interest to try to put them in places where we have the responsibility. Some of them are very restricted. So, but we can replenish areas in which we've taken out past first. I think we all want to do that. I think that getting to the 4% goals is worthy. But so it's helped us in the past, and so make sure it's that.
I would love it if the state would let us create reserve for special education. You were talking to a state senator, repeatedly that's one of my repeated calls.
Because we do have to have placeholders in the budget to account for special education students we don't know that we'll have. But we need them there in case they do show up.
How do we get approval? That's something.
We need the state to legislate we need the legislators to, my understanding would be they would need to set allowable reserve for school districts to carry money in that line item. Because they would have to cover this.
And you talk about it on
They talk
a regular
about it.
basis.
We just keep it in unrestricted.
Yes,
That's
but
the only place we keep it.
I think it would be more transparent in a lot of ways if we could just put in a special education line and then really make it based on costs, because then you see these big swings and like, we're gonna carry over probably $100,000 unused special education money for this year. If we just had it in reserve, we used it when we needed it. It just would make more sense to me. Not a finance person, but that makes sense.
What we have in those other, the semi-restricted or restricted accounts, that's largely discretionary, right, in terms of how much we as a board decide to put.
Yes and no.
Transact.
Isn't it? Some of them are limits.
Yeah, there are limits for some, and there's also targets that we, if you remember when we did were able to put some into the reserves a few years ago. We established targets for what they would be, was basically certain multiples of expenses.
So that's board established targets, and then there's also like for like tax certs, you're only supposed to carry a certain percentage of what your tax certs
outstanding
are
would be, yes.
supposed to have.
This is probably too far out for uncertain this one, but have we looked at how much we might still have in undesignated fund balance if we were to replenish the reserves to those target levels?
But we're going to be working on that for the next month or two.
Any other questions on the budget first presentation? If you have any other thoughts that come to you after this meeting, please send them on to Carl, Joe, and Count. Finance here. And then we'll have another presentation of it. We have so many meetings coming up, but at a future meeting, March 13th, thank you. After all together marathon. Thank you so much, Carla, Joe, and thank you, Finance Committee. All right. Next up, we have the school calendar, first review and discussion. Here, so we're not approving this tonight. Carl, correct me, this has been presented to our staff. It includes the changes they have requested. So you all have it. If you have any questions, thoughts.
I see. Soon or New Year's added.
And just so the board knows, what we do is we actually look at Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES. They're usually the first to publish a calendar draft. And we try to stay consistent with our partner high school districts. Just makes it easier, as well as BOCES. Just transportation coordination, so that it's helpful. This is not identical, but it is very similar for the most part.
Did you want to speak? I know the one difference you'll see with other calendars is October 4th, an additional day for Rosh Hashanah. We're currently taking one day in order to give off a day for Thanksgiving. So that's something.
Oh, you mean we're not getting the Friday?
We're not.
We can get the.
So we can give the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Any thoughts? But staff are able to take it off should they need it.
Yes, and this I discussed with our GTA calendar representatives, and they did speak with our staff members, and in the teacher's contract, you do have the ability to take a religious observance day. So if we needed to observe Rosh Hashanah on the 4th as well as the 3rd, we would certainly approve.
And how does that impact students who need to observe holiday?
Yeah, and that's an important consideration. So, you know, our understanding is that Orthodox Jews will observe on the 3rd and the 4th Reform. The 3rd is more important. That's what I'm hearing from staff members. But yes, families would either need to take off. If a student wanted to take off, they would, it wouldn't count against them as an illegal absence, but they would miss a day of school.
If we need to, if that's something, if we have concerns about, we can always look to add it back and we just have to take the day. Just would hope that if students are getting religious observance, if you are recognizing students for perfect attendance, that would be obvious.
Definitely.
I think after COVID, they don't recognize students for attendance. We want them to stay out when they're sick because always, right? It's the goal.
The other consideration is quite a few families travel for Thanksgiving. So we do, past trends are that on that Wednesday, we do see a pretty high percentage of students leaving, which makes instruction a challenge before Thanksgiving. So that is another thought. But we don't have all that much flexibility because again, there's
Everything
New
falls
Year.
during the week.
Except for Yom Kippur.
Yes.
But Yom Kippur falls during.
Yeah.
That's shocking.
Yeah. We are in school all of September. Pretty.
Oh, it's in March. There's just, it says on the sidelines of the March at 28, 29 Street.
Oh, that's a carryover, yeah.
That's it. Now,
But we will not require students to come to school on Saturday. How many snow days are in this? 4 again?
5.
5?
And the only other thing I will mention is the teachers, they did want to circle back to they were thinking maybe, and this is minor, but the March conference days, making them 1 or 2 weeks later. So they collect more data and information on student performance, because we do have parent teacher conferences in December and March is not that far away. So we may move that to the last 2 weeks of March, which gives teachers a little more time to collect information.
why don't we just do that?
Yeah, I would go with the teacher's recommendation.
Yeah, we're going to go by the teachers on that, but they wanted to discuss it amongst, different grade levels, and then they're going to get back to us. But I think whatever they feel is most valuable, they can present good information to the parents.
And spring break's really late, so they have plenty of time. All right. Any other questions or thoughts on the calendar for our first presentation? That wraps up our board communications and presentations and brings us to public comment. Public comment is intended for members of the community to speak openly and voice concerns in accordance with policy 1510 of the Garrison Union Free School District. Any person wishing to speak shall comply with all provisions of this policy. Comments about specific school personnel or individual students is a violation of board policy. Concerns regarding students or personnel should be discussed privately with the superintendent or appropriate administrator. Comments should be limited to 3 minutes, and speakers are asked to conduct themselves in a respectful manner. The board will listen to comments but will not engage in dialogue. Any necessary follow-up will be noted and provided through the appropriate channel. Members of the public wishing to comment during board meetings are asked to place their name and town of residence on a sign-in sheet. Commenters will be invited to the podium to address the board. Eric Reynolds, come on up. And it's sign-in sheet.
Hi, just a quick question about the budget, which I know board members can't answer, maybe Joe can address it. I know there have been talk in the past about budget advisory committee, and the question is if that ever came to fruition, and B, if there was any discussion about solar so far as the gym roof is concerned, and if there's been any research as far as the Inflation Reduction Act goes in terms of offsetting the cost of the roof repairs and putting solar on, and then potentially lowering our buildings energy bills.
We don't respond to comments on those, so we hold it for board member comment, and I appreciate that, and we'll make sure you get all of them writing as well. So we can-
Yeah, it's fine.
Absolutely.
So it's more of a statement than a question. Maybe Joe wants to speak to it, maybe doesn't, but writing is okay.
Anybody else who wants to speak? All right, we will come back to public comment again at the end if you change your mind and sign just remains open. Minutes.
I have a comment on the minutes. There's a pretty extensive discussion of solar in our last meeting. If anybody's interested in researching that.
We need it.
Hold on,
It
wait.
should be at the end.
Well, be resolved, Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District does hereby accept the minutes of the regular business meeting of February 28th, 2024 as presented. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second, thank you. Your comment is noted. There's a discussion of solar from previous meetings on these minutes. There's a way around that.
Yes.
Public comment, very well noted. Jennifer, did you have any further questions for Jennifer on solar as the head of the Budget Advisory Committee?
No, I'm not going to make Jennifer. Yeah, but
Reiterate right now.
Thank you, guys. All right, any other questions, concerns on the minutes as presented? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nay, abstention. All right, next we have CSE, CPSE recommendations. Be it resolved, Board of Education of the Garrison Union Preschool District approve the Committee on Special Education, CSE, and Committee on Preschool Special Education, CPSE, recommendations and student placement. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second. Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays, abstentions. Next, we move on to policy readings. First, we have the second reading and approval of the policy 7530, child abuse and maltreatment. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of Courtney McCarthy, Policy Committee Chair, does hereby approve policy 7530, child abuse and maltreatment as presented. May I have a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Any questions? We did a first reading of this last time. This is the second reading, and now we are approving it. Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays, abstentions. Next, we have a second reading and approval of policy 7440, student voter registration and pre-registration. Be it resolved, Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of Courtney McCarthy, Policy Committee Chair, does hereby approve policy 7440, student voter registration and pre-registration as presented. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second. Thank you. Do I have any questions on this policy? Again, second reading. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays, abstentions. Personnel items. Be it resolved, Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, hereby accepts the resignation of Emily Cunningham, ELA teacher, effective close of business June 26, 2020. May I have a motion, please? So moved.
Seconded.
Do you want to speak briefly to this one?
Sure. I just want to thank Mrs. Cunningham. She came to us very early to inform us that she is exploring other career opportunities. She will be staying with us through the end of the school year, and her early notification is much appreciated because we can get out there and we've already posted for this is the ELA middle school position. We've already posted it, and within 2 weeks we'll commence with the interview process. But Ms. Cunningham is committed to working with us through the end of June. So we thank her.
Have any questions for her? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays, abstentions. Next, new business. Board nomination of candidate for BOCES board. Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby nominates Catherine Wilburn, residing at 22 Level Lane, Garrison, New York, 10524, which is located within the Garrison Union Free School District, as candidate for election to be held on April 16, 2024, to serve as trustee for the Putnam Northern Westchester Board of Cooperative Educational Services for a term beginning July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2027. May I have a motion, please? Oops. Have any questions, comments? Thank you for volunteering to serve. All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I'm going to say.
Okay. Nays and one abstention. Great. All right, we're back to our second public comment. I'm going to read my paragraph again, but it still applies. If you wish to speak, my sign-in sheet will be open. I'm going to go ahead and keep going then. So we have so many nights ahead of us. We're going to end early tonight. Okay. Woo. Board member comment. Jocelyn. No comment. You, David.
Well, just to say that it's really great that we got the Green Ribbon Award, and you know, it's perfectly appropriate for you to talk about how this was a collective enterprise. But in view of the departure, but a lot of us regret next couple of months. What if you said that your leadership, we wouldn't have happened without it. And thank you very much for.
Every meeting. So.
That's right. I agree.
Jennifer.
So I would like to echo things said about women. I'd also like to thank Carl, Joe, and the Finance Committee for the work on the budget. It seems so seamless, it's easy percent, but I know how many hours and hours and hours. So thank you for that work. And then finally, I did notice in the minutes there is not any information other than the report was given by the budget advisory committee. And I'd like to recommend that we in the future, or request in the future, at least there be a paragraph summary of what the committee reports say. So that might make it easier for the community to have a rapid take, see the excitement.
Dan?
Echo what has been said, but a couple of things. I think the budget, there are a couple of exciting things about it, particularly our ability to make some big investments in the overdue facilities issues, as well as I think the investment we're making in professional development for some of the science and reading requirements. I think are highlights for me of what we're doing and show that we're investing in the core educational programming as well, and in a way that's in line with some of the recent news and some of the focuses of the governor on reading literacy and all that. So great job to all of you guys. Thank you for all of our.
Yeah. Great.
I'll echo the thank yous, Joe, Carl, and Finance Committee. Thank you for all of that. I know that there was a lot of hours that went into it. I know that there's still work to come. So thank you for all of that. And I just want to say this doesn't really have to do with it doesn't have to do with our district, but I over the last week or so really was following the story closely of the tragic death of Next Benedict, a high schooler in Oklahoma who was a transgender student and died a day after an physical altercation with their bullies. And it's such a devastating story. And I am so thankful to the Garrison School for being an open and inclusive and safe space, and for the efforts by the administration to really support mental health support in the school and make sure that we have strong professionals and make sure that there are plenty of safe adults for students to turn to. So thank you for considering.
I will just add to that. I did really appreciate the budget advisory committee meeting, including community members to discuss solar who had expertise in solar. I, again, is so impressed with the knowledge they brought to us. And yeah, I thought that worked really well. And I hope it is something that the board can look to continue. I know we will start looking at charges again in July around the reorg, so we can look to keep that going. Still beneficial to us, even though it is not included in this budget. I thought their feedback was great. Still getting in the room, so hopefully. All right, and then thank you all for all the time you're about to give us over the next 2 weeks. I'm so excited to see you back here again at 7 o'clock tomorrow and almost every night now. All right. On that note, we do not have reason to enter executive session this evening, so I'm going to bypass that section. And we will adjourn. Be resolved, Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby adjourns the regular meeting of February 28th, 2024. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nay, abstention. Report 8:30.
Right. Well done.